Helen Zille, Bathabile Dlamini, and Patricia de Lille. 3 women whose lives read like chapters in South Africa's post-war political history. Born in the 1950s and 1960s, their childhoods unfolded during apartheid's tightening grip. But the injustice they witnessed became the ignition point for careers that would span decades and shape the nation. Helen Zille's childhood was paradoxically marked by the freedoms of an integrated community, one that soon disappeared under the iron hand of apartheid laws.
My parents were poor, they were refugees, and they never indulged us, ever. But I remember my childhood being happy, and I just played my life away. We played in the garden and we played in the streets, and South Africa was safe, and we played with the kids from the neighborhood, black and white kids, because I lived on a small holding outside Johannesburg. And so it was a very integrated community, ironically. And apartheid only started taking shape fully at the beginning of the 1960s, as far as I recall.
A daily drive to high school with her father and a routine of reading and debating the news laid the foundation for Zille's sharp political instincts.
Every day my father used to buy a newspaper and get me to read the newspaper to him and get me to summarize what was happening in the newspaper, and then he would discuss the current events with me. And that's how I developed my love for events and for politics and for analysis and for current affairs. I just loved all of that, and I really credit that to my dad.
Zille has long been seen as a fighter in a male-dominated political landscape, defiant and unapologetically assertive.
I don't blame the patriarchy if I don't get something right, or I don't blame the man if I don't get a promotion. If he's better than me, he must get the job. I always did my very, very best in every job I ever had, no matter how menial, and somehow the next door always just opened. So the truth is, I haven't felt it very hard, frankly, in the patriarchal world. What I did find hard was the scale of sexual harassment that often went beyond sexual harassment, because in the 1950s and 60s, but I became a teenager in the 60s, and then in the early 70s I became a journalist. And in the early 70s still, the entire culture didn't recognize the unacceptability of sexual harassment. It wasn't a thing that people used to get upset about, and it was seen as something that men did.
She's also critical of how younger generations engage with work, especially politics.
I've seen people and worked with people, worked in inverted commas, who've been retired on the job at 35. I've worked with young people who think they have the weekends off. I've never heard of such a thing, having the weekends off. And I've worked with young people who think that you go home at 5, even if there's more work to do. There's no such. There's no such in politics.
And she's worried that the age of AI may undermine critical thinking.
And if you can just ask ChatGPT to write your essay, you will never develop that mental capacity. That is not only there to write essays, but the critical thing is it gives you the tools to tackle other challenges in life. So I've come to the conclusion more and more that school and university is about learning not the content, but actually the skills that enable you to get to the content. It makes you information literate. And I think the younger generation are losing out on the battle to get there yourself.
For Batabile Dlamini, political awareness was not theoretical, it was personal. She grew up in a family of activists in KwaZulu-Natal and lived through the violence of political clashes, including attempts on her family's lives.
In the township between the comrades and Inkatha and My father was shot at some stage, and my younger brother, but my younger brother was very active.
The violence and fear only stilled her political will.
What I know about our generation is commitment, selflessness, and a spirit of working together and supporting others, and being prepared to learn from others. But also, we were a listening generation, because President O.R. Tambo would make a call from Lusaka and the National Executive Committee, and they would say, this year is the year of women. And women would be active, radical, and consolidate and have stronger organizations, but also recognize that they themselves have a role to play in the struggle.
Today's generation of young people, she believes, are fighting a different but equally urgent battle.
They are faced with challenges of poverty, inequality, unemployment. But you also have issues of gender-based violence and femicide. Many young women are killed on a daily basis. And when they come up with their approach, sometimes they find a very strong wall from the older generation. Let me make an example of intersectionality. Intersectionality is about ensuring that we bring all the issues together. Our struggle was about race, class, and gender. So when they bring these things, some amongst us think is something we are being sold out by younger generations. And I also think we must give ourselves time and listen carefully to what young people are doing.
She stresses the power of intergenerational solidarity.
There is no leader that gets tired. We've worked with old leaders that remained active up until the end. Mom Winnie was very active. And even during difficult times, she would call you and you would go there. She would share ideas with you, and very fresh ideas. And if you embrace young people, they also bring some vibrancy in the way you do things. When we established the Young Women's Desk, remember, we were not able actually to deal properly with issues of gender-based violence. And when they came with the Me Too campaign, which is an international campaign.
For Patricia de Lille, apartheid wasn't just a policy. It was a daily insult to her identity. Born in the Karoo, she was drawn into the trade union movement soon after the 1976 uprising.
When I was elected as a shop steward, the chief shop steward, I was called at the time, and I fought to bring the union into the factory where I was working, because I just couldn't stand the way they were treating workers. And I was elected, and then thereafter I was elected onto the executive committee of the South African Chemical Workers Union. And that for me felt so satisfying that on a daily basis, you could confront this discrimination. On a daily basis, you could fight for what is wrong and what is right. To me, there's nothing in between. It's either wrong or right. And that was a significant moment in my life, because since then I never looked back. I knew I had to fight for workers' rights, for human rights, for women's rights.
De Lille was the lone woman in many negotiation rooms, including at the World Trade Center during South Africa's constitutional transition.
And I've done it not once but twice. And even today, out of 18 political parties, at my age, I'm still the only woman leader of a political party. And that needs to be corrected. Women need to come in more into that space. But what women must understand, that in politics, there are no rules for women, there are no rules for men. You have to play by the same rules. And that is the setup of politics. And that's how I've approached politics over the years. I've never seen myself, oh, as a woman, look what they are doing to me, and sit in a corner and cry. No. You hit at me, I hit you back. I wait for the next opportunity. And then when women start fighting back, then you get labeled by society.
She believes each generation must carve its own path, but not forget where it comes from.
This is what every generation should be doing, and that is to honor our past and to remember our past. And every generation, the young generation of today, must realize that as the new young generation of today, they have an opportunity to design their own future. Like when we were growing up, the fight against apartheid was designing our own future. We didn't want to be part of this oppressive system. We wanted to have a South Africa where we could grow up free without all of these restrictions and cruelty that time. So every generation will be different.
Zille, Dlamini and De Lille, 3 women from different parties, different ideologies and different provinces, but they share a unifying truth. They were all born in a South Africa that was meant to exclude them, and yet they rose through resistance, resilience and reinvention.